I was surprised in the way that we came at night and on foot, quietly and slowly. And I think we were through here probably before they realized it.
G-Day began, overcast, cold, and rainy. The French Daguet force, the westernmost element of the attack, began its drive on the Arcelman air base. A brief tank battle took place on the approaches to the air base. Arcelman Air Base was taken on the first day. After overrunning it, the Daguet force headed north to the Euphrates River to seal the Iraqi troops in the Kuwait theater. The door would soon be shut, preventing Iraqi reinforcements from arriving and preventing the escape of Iraqi forces westward. In the meantime, the 101st Air Assault Division had begun their airlift operation deep into Iraq. They established a forward airfield called Cobra Base, from which to stage future air assaults towards the Euphrates River. The helicopter landing was the largest on record, including not only troop transport aircraft, but the larger Chinook helicopters carrying additional fuel, vehicles, and artillery. Within hours, the 101st was clearing out bunkers in the Cobra Base area and bringing other Iraqi forces under its artillery fire.
I can't conceive of another division in the Army or in the world that could do what this Air Assault Division has done this morning, move us all this people and equipment, rapidly put it on the ground. We have secured a large area of Iraq in his own heartland, and we're prepared very shortly for the division commander to start pushing other people through here.
We're going to advance from here then?
Absolutely. There's nothing, as you can well see, there ain't nothing to hold out here. So this is a way station for future operations, and that's what we'll do.
Operating out of Cobra Base, Apache attack helicopters swarmed forward, attacking Iraqi tank formations with their precision-guided Hellfire missiles.
Dead smack hit. Roger, good hit. It sounded like a fucking...
Oh, we got it! Oh, that blew the hell out of it! Sweet! Oh, that blew the shit out of it, baby!
3-4, 3 Tango, direct hit.
The 7th Corps attack came next. Preceded by armored cavalry regiments, the tank and mechanized divisions began their drive into Iraq. During the first day of fighting, contact with the Iraqis was light, much as expected. Later that day, the British 1st Armored Division swung back eastward to engage Iraqi armored divisions near the Kuwait border. In the ensuing encounters, over 200 Iraqi tanks and 100 other armored vehicles were destroyed, with very light losses to British forces. By the end of the first day of fighting, it was apparent to field commanders that the resistance of the Iraqi troops was much weaker than expected.
I expected them to fight harder than they did, and we were prepared for that. And as we were talking earlier, if they had stayed in every single bunker and fought out of every bunker, the result would have been the same. They still would have lost. Our casualties would have been higher, so thank God that didn't happen. My view is that their heart just wasn't in it. POWs have said this. Deserters told us this early on. We don't know why we're here. We don't know why we invaded Kuwait. Many of them said we think it's wrong that we invaded Kuwait. So with that kind of psychology, and with a force like we had coming down on them, where it was certain that they were going to die, doesn't lend itself to force having a really tough desire to hang in there and to defend.
After weeks of aerial bombardment, only a few Iraqi units still had the stomach for a fight. The Iraqi 5th Mechanized Division, which had fought at Khafji, tried to resist the Marine attack.
Some did fight. We had quite a counterattack yesterday morning, and a good bit of it around my CP. The 5th Mech Division counterattacked. We did a couple things, I think, that disrupted it. We learned where they were assembling and fired artillery right at their assembly points, which flushed them out of the oil fields. And one thing we were surprised that they were operating in those oil fields with the hot fires. And that's really where they came at us.
The largest tank battles took place on Tuesday and Wednesday as the 7th Corps began encountering the Republican Guard divisions. Few visual records of these battles exist, as they took place in poor weather or at night. The battles were extremely one-sided. The American Abrams tanks were able to stand off at long range, destroying Iraqi tanks before the Iraqi tanks were capable of hitting the Abrams. 7 Abrams tanks were hit by Iraqi T-72 tanks, but none of the Iraqi rounds could get through the Abrams' tough armor. One of the most savage battles pitted a troop from the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment in a night-long engagement against retreating elements of 2 Republican Guard divisions. By morning, the Iraqi force had been completely defeated. The Republican Guard divisions were defeated nearly as quickly as the regular Army divisions. With few exceptions, the Republican Guard divisional commanders had abandoned their troops to their own fate, leaving the units leaderless and uncoordinated. Some of the most intense fighting in Kuwait came in the approaches to Kuwait City Airport. A tank battle broke out between Marine tanks and Iraqi armored units. The battle was as one-sided as the Army's tank battles, as is evident from this wreckage of the Iraqi tanks on the battlefield.
What hit it was a Sabo round. Went in here and just, when it goes inside, it fragments and just basically blows up the whole inside.
It's just burning here. There's nothing but rubble in here. There's no way anybody could live in this. It's torn to pieces. Looks like somebody threw a frag in here. It's still warm. It's still warm inside of this. It's like being inside of a sauna in here. You slept in there last night? This is all you got inside is just
Pieces like that, all over the floor.
it's all torn to pieces. There's nothing left. Everything inside. If there was a turret or anything in here, it's all gone. There's just little pieces all over. There's nothing left.
The 2 Marine divisions destroyed or captured 14 Iraqi divisions in their drive toward Kuwait City. Allied casualties were remarkably light through most of the fighting. The honor of taking the city was given to the units of the Kuwaiti and Saudi Army. As Kuwait City was being liberated, the Tiger Brigade, an Army tank unit providing support to the Marines, pressed ahead to cut off Iraqi forces retreating back toward Iraq. The road from Kuwait City to Basra became a virtual highway of death as Iraqi forces were smashed by tank fire and airstrikes. After 4 days of fighting, President Bush ordered a ceasefire. The strategic objectives of Operation Desert Storm, the liberation of Kuwait, and the destruction of the Iraqi army had been completed.
And as president, I can report to the nation, aggression is defeated, the war is over.
Desert Storm was very different from recent wars. Without a doubt, air power played a much more important role than in earlier Mideast conflicts. But air power cannot work in isolation.
Air power played a very, very important role. I think it had a lot to do with their morale being extremely low. Air power had made logistics and resupply very difficult for them, so they were hungry and thirsty, as you saw as you moved along with one of our task forces. On the other hand, there was still a hell of a lot of them here, alive and well. So the bottom line is, you still got to come in and clean it up. And in this case, the cleanup didn't turn out to be the huge fight that we anticipated.
The Gulf War was one of the most striking victories in modern land combat. The Iraqi army, though large and well-equipped, had, in the end, proven to be a brittle, hollow army. The United States forces, the Army and Marine Corps, had studied the lessons of the Vietnam War with diligence and professionalism. Nowhere has this been more evident than in the stunning success of the Desert Storm ground assault.
Operation Desert Storm Week continues with Desert Victory, Strategy, and Tactics. Tomorrow night at 10, 11 Pacific, here on A&E.
To order a video cassette of this program, call now, 1-800-423-1212.
An airbag. Fortunately for the rest of us, there's the Isuzu Stylus, the first and only import under $10,000 with a driver's side airbag, standard, so you too can enjoy a lower cost of living. The Isuzu Stylus at just $91.99. There's no